Joining us now is a gentleman who's doing a fine job at Riverside Academy from North Louisiana, now in South Louisiana, and looking to head north in the standings and with wins with an experienced team coming up this year. He just needs to get that athletic director to fix that schedule a little bit, right? Quit playing all those massive 4A, 5A schools and play somebody else. I'm just saying and joking, but I can do so with our friend and brother and Kevin Kizer. Kevin, listen, great to have you with us. I hope you're well in these unusual times.
Yes, sir. Everything's good. Been really blessed throughout the whole situation. Family's good. Work-wise, with me and the wife, everything's been okay. So we've been real fortunate and real blessed. So everything good on this end.
Well, great to have you with us. You're a veteran now. I mean, 3 years
Yeah.
since getting the opportunity to be the head coach at Riverside. And you went there initially with Bill Stubbs, who is a terrific coach and obviously a three-time state champion and a guy that I have enormous respect for. But you've had the opportunity to learn under some very significant guys. Before I let Michael get into the influence of Mummy, talk about Bill and the influence that Bill Stubbs had on you and your feelings about him.
Yeah, I still keep in touch with Coach Stubbs now. Coach Stubbs is that mentor on the football side that I had always been looking for. Just the way he was able to do it from a really throwback approach. He didn't really get involved with the X's and O's too much. And he just kind of showed all of us in the office how to run a program. And I certainly, from day one, paid really close attention to him. And a lot of things I liked, a lot of things I didn't like. And I just soaked up all of that information from him. And, I just really liked the way he runs a program. He had our back on every situation and just extremely loyal as a head coach. So I couldn't be more thankful for Coach Stubbs and what he's done for me and done for Riverside.
Michael?
Kevin, glad you're here tonight, buddy. You're supposed to be a football coach, but over the last 6 months, you've become a counselor, a mentor, learning how to use computers and Zoom and conference calls and things like that. Your world's a little bit different right now, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It certainly has been. And, when the pandemic first hit in March, if I'm being honest, I a little bit angry because we were having a really good good winter in the workouts. And, it kind of shut everything down. I'm like, man, we finally got this thing the way we wanted to go, and here we go. And that was just not just me being real naive, not knowing the extent of COVID-19. And once I saw, man, this thing's really doing damage, I wasn't really worried about our kids working out. I was just worried about their well-being with their families. We had several kids with family members who caught the disease, several kids who had family members out of work. And so my message to the coaches was, we're going to put football on hold, and we've just got to make sure we're talking to these kids and just making sure they're good in life. And then just from a mental standpoint of being stuck in the house and how to handle that. You don't
where to put
idle
that,
mind is the devil's playground. So that was kind of our stance.
All of our grandmothers told us that.
Right.
Hey, what did it mean to you as a young coach when you came here and you saw a level of quality with Timmy and with Coach Stubbs and things like that? What did it mean as a young coach coming here and seeing an example of a quality winning program?
Yeah. So the best part of that is, I didn't know anything about Coach Stubbs. I grew up in North Louisiana in the Monroe area, so I didn't know who Coach Stubbs was from anyone. And then Coach Timmy, I had heard of him in his Reserve Christian days, but didn't know anything about either one of them. And so, I just treated them like any other veteran coach, and they just treated me like any other young coach. And both of those guys, it's amazing the attention they paid to me, the level of respect that they have for me. And then you just look at the responsibilities Coach Timmy has entrusted in me at a really young age. I mean, this guy gave me the head football coaching job at 28. And so I can't say enough about either one of those guys. And what I was able to learn coaching under them is, how do you coach and how do you prepare your kids when you're being hunted and people are after you when you're on top? And so that was a really good learning experience, especially on the basketball side with Coach Timmy. Every night we walked into the gym, everybody was out to take us down.
Sure.
Visiting with Coach Kevin Kizer of Riverside Academy. Kevin, what did you take away from Hal Mumme? First of all, was he a dynamic guy, an eccentric guy, a fun guy? And then as far as what you took away from him and what you learned from him, what were the things that really stuck with you?
Yeah, I actually don't have any experience with him. When Coach Mumme was there, I was a graduate assistant at Barrel Haven for 3 years. And that the staff I was on got let go, and that's when he came in. So I actually don't know him at all. I hadn't spent any time with him.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was something that was in a bio previously that obviously wasn't correct, but understood completely. Now, as far as your football team is concerned for this year, you're dealing with probably the most experienced team you've had. Not probably, I'm sure, looking at
no doubt.
You got the most experience that you've had. You had to kind of, and this is not a criticism at all, but you had to kind of start over. That year with Chris. Chris is an excellent coach and a really good guy, but that was everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The schedule was brutal. Then you lost 3 games in 1 year that were canceled for various reasons. And then Chris left, and you walked in, and really it wasn't a complete total start over, but it was a rebuild. In particular, since the schedule was already set up, and you're playing some of these big, higher classification monsters, right?
Right. And so it was. I don't know if the outside truly knows what type of shape the program was in. We lost a great senior class after Coach Lashney with Jordan Loving and Jared Hemel, Garland, Jeremy Gibson, all of those guys. And it almost was a complete start over, and I knew that going in. But to kind of allude to something we just talked about, that was a way for me to almost thank Coach Stubbs and to thank Coach Timmy. I wasn't looking for the head coaching job. I was actually on my way out to go to another school when Coach Timmy asked me if I'd be interested in it, and that was just kind of a way for me to thank them. When I got to Riverside, we were on top at everything, and I reaped the benefits of that school being on top. And so that was a way for me to say, hey, I've got y'all's back, Coach Stubbs. What you built in the football program, I want to give myself a shot to bring that back. And Coach Timmy, if you're willing to trust me with that much, I really want to prove to you what I can do with this program and take a chance on myself. And what I've done over the course of the past 3 years, I just kept my head down and take the losses and just keep on moving, keeping my head down, doing what's right. And, I think we're going to reap the benefits of it. It hadn't been easy, and it's not going to be easy this year. But just keep doing what's right and just keep plugging away.
Kevin, with the new world.
That's all right. Real quickly, this is a faith-based show as well. And to make the move from North Louisiana to South Louisiana to a program you weren't familiar with, a place you hadn't seen before, and everything else, that had to be a little bit of a leap of faith. Just talk about that and talk about your faith.
Yeah. So that's a great thing you brought up, and that's one of the things I certainly would share with my faith with anyone. And to give you a little bit of background, I never really wanted to be a high school football coach. I always wanted to be, the next big thing in college football and work my way up the ladders there. And God completely took me in a different path. I was very resistant towards it. And then when I finally just let go, and, let him direct my path. Look what it led me to. It brought me down here to a school I knew nothing about the history of it, knew nothing about reserve, didn't know much about Coach Timmy, Coach Stubbs at all. And then, after 3 years being at the bottom of the totem pole, now all of a sudden I'm almost like the head coach of everything on campus. And so, I couldn't have been more blessed. Married my wife during that time, had 2 children during that time, and just in a really good spot across the board. And that wasn't my doing at all. And I think the mentor that Coach Tubbs and Coach Bird have been to me, I think that's all by design, by God's design. And I think I landed where I was supposed to land. I think I've been able to make differences on campus, and interact with not even your athletes, just your teachers, the different students who don't even play sports, and just be able to bring a different dynamic to campus there.
Talk about God leading your pathway. A preacher friend of mine said one time, God didn't lead the children of Israel on the shortest route or the easiest route, but he led them on the best route for them of what he wanted.
Right.
What did you think, not knowing the culture down here at Reserve, and you saw those moms and dads and grandpas and the chairs and everybody out on those nights there? You knew you were in a brand new world, didn't you?
Yeah, no doubt. North Louisiana and South Louisiana
Yeah.
alone are just completely night and day
Right.
different. But what I really liked about Reserve and the River Pastures in general, it just almost takes you back. For me, I'm only 32. It takes you back to the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s, kind of before the streaming world and the 247 sports and all of that. It just takes you back to everybody supporting their local team, local school, and everybody getting out, and it just really takes you back to that. And it honestly, there's not a lot of places left like that anymore.
So you say you're 32 or 33? You said.
I'm at 31. I'm getting it wrong myself.
Oh,
I'm married,
Ken, I have ties older than him.
I hear you.
So I kind of. Hey, let me ask you, what's the world like now? How are you doing your schedules, and how are you dividing things up with the new world of restrictions in which we're living right now? How are you pulling it off?
Yeah, I tell you, our training staff and our assistant coaches have done an outstanding job of following all of these protocols, and we did a really good job of having a plan on the front end, and we followed through with that plan. So we bring the football team in starting at 8 a.m., and we bring them in pods of 20. They get to hit 3 different stations while we rotate, so they get to work out for about 35 minutes. They do auxiliary lifts outside for about 35 minutes, and then we run for about 35 minutes. Rotate that, and then we bring in the rest of the athletes in the school in those same pods of 20 throughout the rest of the day. So our days are long. It's really hot, and that just shows you the commitment from our assistant coaches and our training staff. And look, this has been the best summer since I've been the head coach by far. So really pleased with what we've done. We hadn't had any issues with the temperature checks and the wearing of the mask. Haven't had any issues yet, and we continue to pray that we're safe there. And it's been a really productive summer, not only for the football team, but all of our athletes at Riverside.
A couple of minutes left with Coach Kevin Kizer of Riverside. Kevin, you grew up in North Louisiana. What was the climate like? Did you experience true racism and discrimination? And how much different is it in South Louisiana from your experience as well?
Yeah, so I've been North Louisiana, South Louisiana, and then I spent 7 years in Mississippi. So I've got some pretty good dynamics there. And, it's honestly, it's odd for me because there was some stuff you experienced, but my parents always taught me to respect authority, don't pay attention to black and white. So as a kid, I didn't know how I would be, I wouldn't even consider it racist or anything. Like whatever an adult told you to do, that's what you did. And that's just the way my parents raised me. And, I grew up in a majority white community there in Sterlington. And I couldn't tell you that, I wouldn't say racist. I think there's a lot of ignorance of each culture on both parts. But, my parents have never separated me from anyone. You do what you have to do regardless. And so I've been in a lot of different situations, but I'm going to carry myself a certain way regardless of who I'm around, and I'm going to respect people the same way regardless of how you treat me. And I think that's how you break down barriers. I think the world wants to create a divide. If they didn't divide us over color, they would divide us over something else. And I think the world just wants to have this divide. And I think it's up to us to have those disciplines to fight that and, be willing to deal with whoever, regardless of their background. And I'll say this, and then I'll just kind of get off of that subject. We need to really get back to right and wrong versus black and white. And that'll solve a lot of problems there. Right. And, so nothing that's happened nothing that's happened here recently is anything new. We just have to really pay attention to what we're seeing on TV and just make sure we understand the media can kind of spin stories whichever way they want to, but it's up to us to have, disciplines amongst ourselves and make sure we interact with each other on a daily basis. And we've got to fight that divide. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. It's just up to us to have those self-disciplines and fight that human nature, I guess, on that divide.
Well, it's really well stated. And
wow, I'm telling you.
Is more people, if more people would turn their attention and turn their thoughts and turn their minds and their hearts toward Christ and the love of Christ, and I don't think we'd have many of these problems at all, if any at all.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest things to me is, and I don't say it to be ugly. I say it to be real. A lot of us, the majority of America, claims Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, but we can't see eye to eye over something like that. We can't see past color. That's amazing to me. But all we can do is continue to pray and just change it one by one, and that's it.
Kenny, there's been a thread in these conversations that we've had with coaches and with friends of ours over the last year, and I mean, Kevin is he's the prime example of this. He talks about his folks as he was a kid. They spoke of respect, they spoke of honor, understanding laws and rules, and treating people kindly. I mean, I think that's what the Word of God says: do justly, love mercy, walk humbly before God. So I'm delighted that a guy like Kevin is standing in front of young kids every day, saying this is the way, walk it. And man, I appreciate hearing you. I'm gonna keep praying for you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's the truth, and we're all sinners saved by grace.
Yeah.
But, the hypocrisy of people that claim to be followers of Christ and then turn around and are completely and totally judgmental, discriminatory, and even racist is absurd. And that's not who we're supposed to be, and that's not who we're going to be, God willing, because the effort starts here with one individual and two individuals and three individuals. And we got three here, so let's carry it on. Kevin Kizer, listen, thank you so much for the time. Keep up the great work with those young men. Let's all hope and pray there's a season, and God bless you and your wife and your two children, and I hope to see you soon. You hear?
All right, you got it. Thank you all for having me. Appreciate it.
All right.
Bless you, buddy.
Kevin. Thank
all
you.
right.
Kevin
Thank you,
Kizer,
bye.
Riverside.